movie footage used on the podcast is used for fair use. Nightmare Talkers makes no claims and only uses the footage for commentary and entertainment purposes. Please support Annabelle by watching it on home media or wherever you can watch the movie. Enjoy the episode.
That's all, folks.
That was like the dumbest way we could do an intro.
I love it. That was fabulous.
Oh my god. Anyways, hey, how are we doing? Yeah, welcome to episode number 7. It's ya boy. I'm not doing that anymore. Nope, not doing that. It's me, Smiley, with Grace.
It's Grace.
Hi, Grace. How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be back.
Feeling better from last week?
I am, yes.
You gotta work on what you eat, man. Like, come on.
I'm trying, but those burgers and fries, man, they're not agreeing with me lately.
You might be slowly turning into a vegan.
Oh, say it's not so.
I don't know if we can make that
That's
joke.
the nightmare right there.
That's the nightmare we gotta talk about. So, you're actually becoming a vegan. So we're gonna have to put you down.
I'll just sit in the corner enjoying my tofu.
No! Now go sit in the corner and think about your life.
Anyways, hey guys, welcome back. Today's episode is over the movie Annabelle. So, fun fact about Smiley, he might be like a creepy horror guy. I might be doing it. I don't know why I keep talking about myself in the third person perspective. I might be developing split personality disorder. Anyways, so I might be this horror person that loves horror movies. My favorite movie is The Conjuring 2. I love watching slashers and things like that. I love watching Chucky, but I hate dolls.
You don't say!
Hate them. But for you guys at home, I made the decision to sit and watch Annabelle.
You volunteered this one, too.
For the first time ever.
You took a big sacrifice on this one.
Yes, I did.
I salute you, good sir.
Well, I thought, we've been putting out slashers, and then, we only have, 2, we only have, 2 paranormal, because Fear Street is considered, a paranormal slasher, but it's still a slasher,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I hate dolls with a passion. Robin, get that thing off the screen. Robin, get it off. No. Don't put that on the screen. Listen, hey, no. Get it off. For people that are listening to this, are going to think we're insane. Grace probably also thinks I'm insane. Yeah, so Grace, you said you just recently watched the Jim movie. What did you think about it?
Overall, this one was far creepier, and more suspenseful in terms of, not just in the Conjuring universe, but, in paranormal movies. There was a lot more, you got to see more of, the demon, and obviously we'll get more into that later.
Yeah,
but
they said,
I had chills.
Hey, you guys thought The Conjuring was scary? Let's turn this up to 11.
Mm-hmm. No, I had chills down my spine the whole time. 30 seconds in.
I covered my eyes.
Until the credits.
I covered my eyes at some scenes. I really did.
Scaredy cat.
Anyways, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I just had to say that.
No, I understand it. Yeah, you don't like the dolls, you're gonna be a little coward about it. But thank you for the sacrifice. We appreciate you.
You know what the funny thing is? Right before this thing, I talked to our mutual friend. I'm just gonna say her name starts with an H. You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
And I told her about Annabelle and things like that. She's like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna be staying up all night because of this, you asshole." And so because what I didn't tell her is the real Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll, right?
Yes.
And it's locked up in the Warrens museum.
Yeah.
And I wish we can go to it, but unfortunately, it is like no one. It's not open to the public anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which
their
sucks.
their daughter decided to completely shut it down because there were people were taking things from it. That's really what it is. People were taking stuff
Yeah.
from the Warrens Museum, and then they would return it back because hey, you stole a cursed item.
We learned that mistake real quick.
Yeah, and so, anyways, yeah, so I told her because there was an incident that only lasted like 2 weeks, 4 years ago, when Annabelle disappeared for two
Mm-hmm.
weeks, and I just told her Annabelle disappeared, and so now she thinks the Annabelle doll is somewhere out in the world.
It's under her bed.
But the truth is, it only happened for 2 weeks. They found it, locked it back up. We're good. So, and I know she's not going to listen to this because she says she's going to refuse to listen to this episode because it's about Annabelle.
Not that
And
she'd watch our podcast anyways, because she's not a horror buff, but
just roasted. You know,
boo,
hit
we
the
can't
air
be friends
horns.
with her
Hit
anymore.
the air horns. Anyways, I think she did watch a couple of episodes because we guilt tripped her into it.
We did.
Anyways, I also just wanted to say we've been looking at it, and we just want to thank you guys for the love that you've been showing to our channel, especially to We Are Here, the Poltergeist episode. As of today, as we're recording, it has 81 views, which is insane to think about. I know, like most big content creators, like, man, that video failed. To us, that's a huge thing because that's only like what, episode 5,
Yeah.
right? And we'll see how well this one does, and we'll see how well the Fear Street does, because we're recording this before Fear Street comes out. The episode, not the movie. The movie's been out for a while. But anyways, yeah. So Grace, now that I've been
Hello.
talking for a while, do you want to kind of talk about like the origins of Annabelle and why they made this movie and stuff like that?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the Annabelle story, I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast.
Whoa, 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 whoa! We want them to listen.
Yeah,
Don't
we
be
do.
gaslighting people.
So someone, I believe it was a nurse, was given the doll in, I think it was the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and said that the doll was acting weird. And a psychic medium had told the nurse that the doll was, you know,
Possessed.
yeah, not. I guess you could say more. Yeah, no, possessed is probably the best word for it. Was possessed by the spirit of a girl named Annabelle, who
Inhabited.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's inhabited by the spirit of this girl who had passed away named Annabelle. And the student, or not the student, the nurse, and I think she had a roommate. They didn't think it was a demon, right? So they just, allowed this dead girl's spirit to live in the doll and just, accept it, right? And then eventually the doll starts, like, becoming violent and malicious.
Yeah, I think it's one time, like the boyfriend was over or whatever, and he woke up in the middle of the night with the doll. He was like semi-conscious; he wasn't fully awake, with the
Mm-hmm.
doll's hands around his throat and was choking him, and he couldn't get the
Yeah.
doll off and things like that. Another thing that was they kind of figured it was getting creepy is they would have the doll kneel, like they would sit the doll down,
You ever get so scared that you don't know where to put your hands at?
Mm-hmm.
and then it just kept falling over and over and over again. It kept moving rooms. Whatever was
Yeah.
possessing it kept putting it on its knees, and it stayed
Yep.
up.
Nope.
And eventually, the Warrens were contacted, and then they took the doll and, pronounced it, hey, there's a demon living in this. We're going to take it off your hands. they took the doll and they put it in their own like little haunted museum where fun facts with Grace, Ed Warren, before he passed away, stapled the death tarot card onto the outside of the box that like they contained Annabelle in.
Why did he do
This has
that? Was
been
it
fun facts.
just
Nobody knows.
he just
Nobody
did
knows.
it?
That's the thing. He just did it and then he died.
Well, they said
Like he
the Warrens said that was the most evil thing that they had in their whole museum was the Annabelle doll,
yeah.
because just them taking it home, just driving it home, they almost got into 3 fatal car accidents with the doll in the car, and then they eventually locked it up in a glass case, and it's blessed by a priest every twice a month, so like every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's every couple weeks. Yeah.
It's blessed by a priest to make sure nothing happens to it. And it says outside on the doll, positively do not open. Because as soon as someone opens it, it can go haywire. I think there is actually a video that they did because they were moving it through its glass box that it was in. They moved boxes. And there's a video of them picking up the doll, and they're like wearing gloves. There's a priest behind them. There's a Catholic priest behind them, like following them, making sure nothing was going to go wrong. Of them removing it from one and putting it into another.
Yeah.
And it remains there to this day. So not even the people who were stealing stuff from the haunted museum, no one touched that doll.
Nope.
Not a single
They're like,
person.
I don't want that demon.
Yeah, well, it's because in the movie it's possessed by like another demon called Malthus. We don't know exactly what demon in real life it's possessed by or inhabited by, because like demons can't possess inanimate objects.
Right.
And so it's like controlling it, moving it around, giving the signs of possession. And so like the demon, like they believe they have it locked up inside that glass box, forever. Or until one day, something happens and the doll disappears.
Yep. Again.
Because that can happen.
It's been known to.
Oh, yeah. So, it's very interesting. Anyhow, sorry, I got distracted for a second there.
No, you're good.
But yeah, it's interesting because like this movie is not like going with that story at all.
No, this is almost like a background story.
Yeah, it's almost so like this Annabelle movie is actually, if you look at it chronologically, is the middle of the Annabelle movies, because you have Annabelle, and then you have Annabelle Creation, and then you have Annabelle Comes Home, right? But chronologically, you have Annabelle Creation, Annabelle Comes Home. That's the sequence. That's chronologically the sequence of the events that happen. And so, only one of them, like maybe one, maybe two of them come close to the actual events, which is like the ending of, like at the beginning of Annabelle, and then also Annabelle Comes Home, they investigate, like the first part of it, they investigate it, and then they leave because I think the events of Annabelle Comes Home happens during the time of The Conjuring 2, I believe. And so, yeah. And so they go and do like the stuff in England while the events of Annabelle Comes Home happens, which that's a whole nother thing that's a lot crazier than this one that we just, this one that we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's saying something.
Yeah, it is saying something. And so they obviously changed the doll for the movie, right?
Yeah, they had to spookify it.
They had to make it a little bit more creepy than the Raggedy Ann doll, which I don't know what's more creepy than that. Have you seen that thing?
It's horrifying.
Yeah. In there whatsoever.
1,000-yard stare.
Oh yeah, 100%. But they decided to make it a porcelain doll, because porcelain dolls are a lot creepier than Raggedy Ann dolls. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so, you see like the beginning of the movie begins. Ed and Lorraine Warren are talking to the nurse and her roommates at the beginning of the movie, and Annabelle's sitting there, and she's like all battered up, has like one of her glass eyes has a crack in it, and just things like that happened to it beforehand. And turns out that was the events of Annabelle happened a year prior. And you have this couple that the wife is pregnant, named Mia, and I forgot the husband's name for some reason. I just watched it. And
John.
Yeah, John. And they get out of church and they go home, and they're sitting there, and she's like watching TV using the sewing machine. Very like 1970s style living situation. And so it's what's on there is actually, because it's like the centerpiece of all the Conjuring everything. They're talking about the Charles Manson cult. Because like one of the centerpieces of especially the Annabelle series is cult activities, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's almost the centerpiece for everything. It kind of made it the centerpiece after the success of Annabelle, but it's really what it is. It's really just like a cult stuff. It's everywhere, right? And so they talk about the Charles Manson cult, which was a real cult. Where he had his followers go and kill several people and things like that, thinking that it was telling them that it was for, like, God told him to tell them to do that, right? But really it was to start a race war because he was a racist asshole. There's a point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're starting a swear counter for Grace this episode. So
Great.
And she's like, dang it, I almost got away with it. Anyways, and so it's really what it is. And what's the really sad thing about this is, when Charles Manson died?
Not off the top of my head.
It's like in the 2010s.
Okay. I knew it was fairly recent.
And it wasn't because of like lethal injection or anything. He died of natural causes. So he like died of like colon cancer, I think, or something like that. Some type of cancer.
Okay.
I mean, he should have went out another ways, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But anyways, they have like this screen up and they're talking about the cult that got arrested and everything. And then they're kind of talking because John at this point is like finishing up medical school and he has to go to a conference. She's very pregnant. And then John made the fatal mistake that you should never do in a marriage or a relationship. He said the quiet part out loud. That this is stressing him too much.
Yeah. And then just proceeded to just eat crap for the next like 5 minutes.
This is going to be hard for you, isn't it?
I full on was like walked into a brick wall there and I'm like, wait. I can't pull a smiley here.
Robin's watching you. He has Actually, one of the episodes he put up a thing that has like the jokes that we do. He literally has a list of the jokes that we do. And one of them is making a joke about him watching us.
I'm watching you, Wazowski. Always watching.
He's always watching.
Yeah. He also has a joke like, okay, well, there's an old joke that's checked off. There's
He's got his checklist. He's marking them off.
He does. He has a checklist.
I love it.
Yeah, it is hilarious. Anyways, so they're talking and then she leaves. She goes into the baby room and then John shows up and he apologizes. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, dude, you f***ed up.
Yep.
See, I learned how to not swear.
You got the loopholes down, yeah.
I can just not say it by just not uttering the noise. So
you take out the vowels and you're good.
Anyways, so he's just like, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, well, I got a surprise for you. And the wife was like, the last time you said that, I got pregnant. He's like, you sure betcha.
You were surprised.
That doesn't make it better.
Don't you forget it.
It's just like, yeah.
He was real proud of that too.
Oh, yeah, he was super proud of that. And then he walks in with this box. And you know what was inside the box?
The Annabelle doll.
No, it was today's sponsor, Dubby.
Oh, Dubby!
Yeah, he pulled
Yeah.
it out of the box. Just like, whoa. You know? Anyways, I have to do the sponsor segment some way, right?
Of course. That was a good one.
Us pointing this out does not help with that. Anyways, so W is a gamer energy drink. It has 0 sugar and I have caffeine and non-caffeine products. If my brain will work, thinking about this, because we don't have a script. I'm just doing this off the top of my head.
The English, yes.
Yeah, the English. Anyway, so W is a gamer energy drink. They have caffeine, non-caffeinated things, powders, and it's a lot cheaper than the major brands out there. You don't use as much. It comes with its own little scoop. If you want to just try out W, they have a starter pack where you get like packets of it that has like it's like portion size packets of it. You get like a cup. You get 3 packets, and all you have to do is pay for is shipping. And they also have T-shirts, hats, all that fun jazz. But also, on top of that, so you can get that and just pay shipping. But if you use promo code Nightmare Talker at checkout, you get 10% off your order. Again, that's w.gg and use promo code Nightmare Talker at checkout and get yourself some today. Anyway, so back to the movie. So actually, he pulled out Annabelle.
Yeah.
The W was on
She was
top of
drinking the
Annabelle.
W,
Yeah,
yeah.
she was chugging
Yeah.
it. They give you the demons in you. Just kidding. No, they don't. The demon jitters. Just kidding. That's when you drink the other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, they pull out the Annabelle doll, and you can tell it's already creepy from right off the bat. This is before it turned into what it was, because it was just like porcelain white skin, really red lipstick, eyelashes, everything, the whole 9
Yes.
yards.
Soulless eyes. A beautiful dress. I'd like to add.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
Throw that in there.
It's a
Like,
beautiful dress.
yeah. If it wasn't possessed, like haunted, it would have been a really cool doll.
So you know what a funny thing is? Fun fact with Smiley. During some of the scenes where it's just the two of them, they would set the Annabelle doll in a cast chair and have it stare back at them.
I love it.
They just have it sitting there in a casting chair, watching everybody else. Like it'd be sitting like in the director's chair, and like the director's like, "That's fucking creepy." Yeah, it's just sitting there chilling, while everybody else are like working on a few things. But yeah, that they took really good care of the doll, obviously because it was the centerpiece of the whole thing, right? Lots of different scenes that I will get into later about how well maintained they took care of the doll, because it went through a lot of rough things.
Yeah.
In the
Life.
movie, and not just like in life, but in the movie in general, right? Anyways, so and then Mia sets it up on the shelf, and then they proceed
With the rest of her collection of creepy dolls.
which they're all wearing the same dress.
Right,
you notice
just different
that?
colors.
And like
yeah.
different size of roses. They're all wearing the same dress and things. It's weird. But also it's the 70s. Like porcelain dolls were like the fad back then. You can just ask Robin.
That was a big collector thing.
he lived during the 70s, I believe. He had that. That's off the checklist right there. Old joke.
I know more than you. All right.
Anyways.
We got one down. We're good.
Anyways, so they set the doll doll, but yeah, like porcelain dolls were huge back in those days.
Yeah.
You know, they're not as big as now because a lot of movies and things like that are like demonized, no pun intended, demonize the dolls.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, they set the doll down and then they go to bed. And if you want to kind of take it from there while they're in bed.
Yeah. So they're just minding their own business, sleeping, and they get woken up by their next door neighbors, like screaming. They hear a scream. They get woken up, and the John goes and he goes next door to check it out. And Mia's like, "Shouldn't we call the police?" And he's like, "We don't need to. I'll just go check."
I'm a
And
man.
I'm a man. I don't need no police. And then he like runs back in the room and he's like, "Call the police. That was a lot of blood. Call the police." So Mia calls the police, and she's actually attacked by the the person that killed the neighbors.
They didn't really
And
give a name to the guy. They never really gave him a name.
no, no, we don't really know much about the killer at this point in time.
Yeah, the main killer because there was two of them.
Right.
So,
Um.
anyways, continue.
Anyways, yes, the police show up and shoot the killer, like the man, and then the other killer, the female, she commits suicide by she like grabs the Annabelle doll and like sits on the floor and just like slits her throat.
Yeah, and turns out it was the neighbor's daughter, Annabelle Higgins. That might
Yeah,
have
and her
some
boyfriend.
that might have some lore implications for
Yeah.
later on in the story. Later on, not in
What?
this story, but in another movie.
Yes.
But anyways, continue. Don't forget, she also got stabbed. Mia got stabbed, like right around
Yeah.
her belly.
Yeah. So the next day, cuts to the next day, like Annabelle goes, or not Annabelle, Mia goes to the hospital, and we see John running through, and he's like, "What happened?" You know, like going to check on his wife, like a husband does. And you know, they say everything's okay. The doctor's like, "You're good, but we're gonna put you on bed rest just because that was a lot of stress you just went through, and to play it safe for you and the baby,
It was just a
no
little bit of stress,
movement."
not too much.
Yeah, just a tiny bit, you know, an average Tuesday.
I've been stabbed before. Literally, I have been, but that's a whole nother story for another day.
Right.
What did he say?
Yeah, so she gets put on bed rest, and I think John has to go to like a conference or like a meeting or something. I just watched this movie today. How do I already not remember what happened? No, like there was some paranormal, like John was at work and some like minor paranormal activity kind of starts at this point.
Spoofy.
Spooky movie.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
Yeah, because like one night John goes to make popcorn. He puts it on the stove, but Mia had fallen asleep, so John's like, "Okay, never mind. We'll turn off the stove." And then he leaves for work the next day, and Mia is sitting in the bedroom watching TV and working with her sewing machine, and we see all of the stove knobs. I don't know if those have a name or not.
The burners get turned on.
Yeah, that's it. The burners all get turned on. You can hear like the clicking as the gas fires up. And the popcorn is still sitting on the stove. Mia's still working on her sewing, watching her. She's so engrossed in this daytime soap opera that she doesn't hear or notice the popcorn actively burning, like actively on fire. And I just want to bring that up for a second. How do you not notice when popcorn is being cooked? Because
Well, to be
it is
fair,
such
she was
distinct
in
smell.
she was in her room, right? And it
True.
was in like aluminum foil sort of thing, right? Like nowadays, it's like in a paper bag, so you can smell it from like a mile away. But in aluminum, it's like the smell doesn't really release until you open it.
Yeah, but like it had exploded from the heat and like all the pressure. So I don't understand. Like, I know movie logic, blah blah, but that's just one little like minor thing that bugged me. Was she didn't smell the actively burning popcorn once the thing had exploded, and she didn't hear it
God
or
damn it.
anything. Like,
God damn it! Why didn't she smell it?
dude, she was so engrossed in those daytime soap operas.
They were a hit back in those days.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Eventually, she goes into labor and gives birth to her baby, which is a
Whoa,
girl they
whoa!
named.
You skipped over a huge portion of what happened. She
Indeed,
the,
I did.
the fire happened, and then what happened when she finally noticed that the fire's happening?
Oh, yeah, she went out into the kitchen and, like, finally noticed the fire. So naturally, I'm pretty sure she tried. I was also playing video games at this point, so I wasn't fully watching the screen. But. I don't remember if she tried to turn off the burners or anything.
No, she just
But
tried to leave.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say she was trying to run out. She tripped and fell, and then there was this force that like pulled her like multiple feet backwards. It probably was like 5 or 6 feet,
Yeah.
and she naturally that's scary for anybody. You're home alone. You get pulled
Whee!
backward multiple yards, and the neighbors come in. They like say, "We've got you. Let's get you out of here." They save her.
I don't think she necessarily
She-
went into labor. I think they just had like, I don't know if it caused it or they never really specified how she had the baby.
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't.
I think what it was that they maybe induced labor or something like that because of smoking
Yeah.
inhalation and things like that.
Yeah, because she was taken to the hospital afterwards. Because the next scene, it's like her in a hospital and their baby's born.
And she's saying that she needs to like they need to leave that place. She doesn't want her
Yeah, like
baby around there.
she can't go back in that house.
That's logical standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's completely fair. And Mia tells John to throw away the Annabelle doll, like, get rid of it. And so they move, and we see John bringing the Annabelle doll out to the garbage and throwing her in the garbage can, placing the lid on, minding his own business, walking away.
Well, there's also like a thing that probably was like a significant in there is that lady who like Annabelle who killed herself, Annabelle the person, not Annabelle the doll, but Annabelle who killed herself,
Yeah.
bled into the doll
Yeah, she got blood on the doll.
and it went into the eyeball.
Freaks me the out.
Because that's a normal thing,
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of a hint that like it kind of reactivated the demon because not
Yeah.
a lot of paranormal things were happening until that point. Like the cult showed up, but it wasn't necessarily the necessary thing that caused it,
Right.
and so like caused them to attack.
Yeah, so if you want to take over what happens with the detective.
Oh yeah, so the detective gives them the rundown. So they move into their new place, right? And they're in a new apartment and things like that. And there's like no sign of the doll. There's no activity that's been happening since they moved there.
Right.
Anyways, but the detective also comes over and tells them that it's Annabelle Higgins and her boyfriend, and they were part of a cult and things like that. I mean, you kind of could tell when the boyfriend died, not only because they were wearing like fully white, which is a typical cultish activity.
Yeah.
The other thing is as well that he had like the ram symbol on his belt buckle. Because I think the cult, it's called like Cult of the Ram or whatever, which
I think it was Disciples of the Ram.
yeah, Disciples of the Ram. Which, fun fact, the demon that they based it off of is if you believe in it, it's a real demon, right? What is the demon's name? Malthus, which
That's
is
it.
which is like one of like the lords of hell or whatever. Anyways, but he doesn't have goat-like features. They just added that to the movie.
Yeah, that's Hollywood making
Yeah,
an appearance.
because I think they decided to do that just because they didn't want to do something else, and so they decided to make it um, decided to they decided to make it a thing with the movies itself, trying to make them Ram like features, which is more accustomed to Satan, Lucifer, whatever name,
Yeah.
Anyways, so the detective tells him yes, it's the cult and things like that, and he was like, if you need more information, just let me know. And Mia was like, no, I think we're good. Just want to put this behind us. And
Mm-hmm.
they go to church, and the priest gives a sermon about hard times, and you kind of need to face them and things like that. And so she goes and grabs the Annabelle doll. She goes and grabs
Yeah.
the doll and puts it back in Leah's room. It's all like at this point, it's all suited up and everything, right? Because it was there at the fire. Um, and
Yeah,
so
and it had appeared in like while they were unpacking their moving boxes.
yeah, and then John was like, "Why is that here? I didn't put that in there." And me, I was like, well, just after the sermon today, the preacher said, we need to face, our fears and everything, and so I think it'd be best to have this back in here. And you got this for Leah, and so, which is the daughter, you got this for
Mm-hmm.
Leah, and so I'm going to put that in here, right? And then that's
Yeah.
when the creepy things started happening throughout the house.
Mm-hmm.
Random footsteps were happening. Everything while John was gone at work.
Yeah.
Like at one point, she saw Annabelle Higgins. Like she was looking in the other room and saw like this little girl, because this little girl was running around everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the girl started running towards the door, and then all of a sudden, like the door closed and opened back up, and it was Annabelle Higgins, and went to go attack, quote unquote, attack her,
Yeah,
right?
it was like the dead version of Annabelle Higgins.
Yeah, and it was just like the three rules of hauntings that Ed has stated.
Mm-hmm.
What are they again?
I don't know if this is the right order, but there's
Possession's
um
the last one.
yeah, and there's oppression. I don't remember what the third one is.
Oh, we'll have a clip up on it on here,
Infestation, oppression, and possession.
so
Yeah.
we're good. Um, anyways, so it just started tormenting her and the family, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they went to go talk to the priest about it, and the priest asked like, "Oh, what is like the latest thing? Um, what is something that could have, the spirit could have held on to, the possession could have held on to, and things like that, right?"
Yeah.
And John was like, "Well, we had a sewing machine, TV, blah 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 blah." And it's like, well, it's not that. The TV was a reference to Poltergeist.
Yes.
Anyways, I was like, no, it wasn't that. Is there something that's more tangible that's not conducted to electricity? And then Mia was like, the doll.
Mm-hmm.
The doll was the one. But anyways, I don't know. I probably just skipped way ahead. Like I said, I was trying to watch the movie, but it just scared the crap out of me.
So, editor's note here. Um, After the Annabelle ghost comes and attacks Mia, then they go to the priest. Um, and the priest does not ask about the doll, but he's rather like, hey, y'all been through a lot. This makes y'all's love stronger. Editor's note. Also, y'all didn't expect to hear my lovely voice this episode, did you? I haven't been a part in like 2 episodes. But yeah, that's what happened. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Editor note out.
And so things, just like crazy things, started happening throughout the house and stuff like that. And so So eventually they started talking to the priest about it and different things like that. And so they started talking to the priest about it, and they kind of heard stories about that doll and things like that. And then one day, she goes downstairs to put stuff in her storage, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's like a baby crying in the background. Noises were happening, things like that, right? And obviously, also, by the way, this podcast was not a play-by-play. We will be skipping throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, you got to go watch the movie on your own time.
Yeah, it's on Netflix right now, so
It is.
or other home media, because we don't claim ownership.
Wherever you get your movies.
Yeah, we don't claim ownership or anything like that. Anyways, so this is not a play-by-play. We just talk about the movies and what we liked about those scenes. And I think, what was it, that she's downstairs in the basement. And because, a lot of big cities, their storage areas are down, like, in the basement area of those places.
Yeah.
And so she hears, like, a baby crying and stuff like that. And then a carriage, like a baby carriage, rolls out. And also, it was kind of her fear because before that, there were some kids drawing, like, some pictures on the stairs and saying, "Hey, don't talk to," like, one girl was starting to talk to Mia, and the brother was like, "Hey, we don't talk to strangers," things like that,
Bad touch, stranger danger.
And so there's the baby carriage rolling out, and then she goes to see, like, thinking it's like her child or a child in there, right?
Yeah.
And she rolls over the thing, and then all of a sudden a hand pops out and grabs her arm, which scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah. I still can't watch that scene.
We'll have it up on screen. Just kidding. Big, just the entire screen, just that one scene where the hand grabs the arm. Anyways, and that's where you kind of see the demon in its full form, right?
Yeah. Which
Malthus.
they did a fabulous job.
Oh, yeah. And I guess, what is it? Malthus and Valak are like the two big bads of the Conjuring series.
Yeah.
One is more on the European side, and the other one is on the American side of things.
Yep.
And so she sees that, and then she gets like this mark on her arm. And then she like tries to take off, and like the elevator was not working, and he just kept messing with her the whole time, like messing with the electricity and things like that. And so she had that mark on her arm, and then she finally gets upstairs, goes to bed, wakes up the next morning, and that mark is gone. And then she meets with the detective again, right? Because he gave her some more information, and she sees these pictures and sees that same mark that she had on her arm the previous night. She sees it drawn on the wall right next to Annabelle Higgins' body.
Yeah.
And that's when she starts putting two and two together, that, oh, this is a demonic thing happening. Right? This is a demon messing with us. And so that's when they called a priest, and they have that conversation about what could possibly be in the house that shouldn't be there and things like that. And then the priest takes the Annabelle doll, right?
Yeah.
And leaves. And during also this time, they became friends, like the bookstore owner, things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the cool things, another fun fact, like a lot of those scenes where like they seemed creepy, like the close-ups of Annabelle and things like that, the part where she has like her head hanging down and like looking away, right? I did that IRL, but like you can't see my face. Anyways, when they do that, there's actually a guy off camera holding on to the doll because they had an issue with the doll just kept falling.
Yeah.
And so, and another thing, another cool fun fact, not really a fun fact, but another scene where you see the demon kind of like fully is Books started flying off the shelves and things like that. Um, then you see the Annabelle doll slowly rise up, and
Yeah.
that was just a simple wire trick. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they had the wire pulling up, and then you see behind it, like holding onto the doll, is Malthus.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, so, like, with the look of Malthus, why he's so, like, dark, they didn't do it because of, like, he's a demon or whatever. The director and the makeup artist were like, we want to make him look like he's been in hell for a while, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and his skin is just completely charred. That's why he leaves like footprints around different things. That's like the bottom of his feet that were burnt. Those are ashes that were on his feet, right?
Yeah.
And so you can always, like, you can tell there was lots of passion on set, things like that. The
Yeah.
actors,
No detail left untouched.
oh yeah, no detail left untouched. What's really cool is like they use like actual, I don't know if it's cool depending on who you are. They use, like, they're using actual demons from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Which, do you know what those are?
I don't.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls is now recorded as the oldest religious literature in the world. They were found in the
Wow.
Dead Sea, and it talks about the. There's a specific part in there that talks about the different demons and deities of hell,
Okay.
where you have like Satan up top and just, keep going down. And Malthus, Malthus himself, he is like a lord, I believe, or something up there, and he has 9 legions of an army, like 9 legions,
Wow.
which is huge, right? It's a huge fucking army,
Mm-hmm.
um, and things like that. In order for him to come, in order for him to like come to our world and possess someone to be able to bring his legions, someone has to willfully give up their soul. He can't just take it, right?
Right.
And so during that whole thing, it just shows what he's doing. He's just trying to push them over the edge to the point
Mm-hmm.
where one of them's going to give up their soul, right? And just keeps
Yeah.
pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. That's why he keeps doing all these different things around the house, around the apartment, things like that, because he wants to scare the fuck out of them.
Yeah,
And
he's
so,
trying to break them down.
oh yeah, because once you break them down, I mean, it's also like it's a classic war tactic for getting information, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, once you break down the suspect enough, they'll talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just the U.S. Army using like waterboarding, but like other places using a lot more aggressive tactics. Because once you quote unquote break their spirit, you can get
They'll talk.
they'll talk. You
Yeah.
can get anything out of them, right? And that's what demons do, is they basically break your spirit down to where you're just done. You'll literally do anything to save whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's making it look like as if he's gonna kill the daughter or possess her daughter, right?
Yeah, and that's what Mia thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Mia thinks. That's what everyone's kind of thinking, including John, right? They're thinking
Mm-hmm.
like he's trying to, and the priest kind of clarifies like, well, he can't possess like a body of a baby because of the fact that the baby cannot
Baby can't
explicitly,
offer its soul.
yeah, baby
Yeah.
can't offer its soul. And so anyway, so they give the doll to the preacher, and then the preacher leaves with the doll. And if you want to kind of take it from there, Grace.
Yeah. The priest takes the doll because he thinks that if he puts the doll on like sacred ground, that it might be enough to contain the demon until they can kind of figure stuff out and do what they need to. And so he puts the he gets in his car and he puts the Annabelle doll in his passenger seat. And then he kind of like does a double take, and then he's like, actually, we're gonna put you in the back seat. So he moves her to the back seat, starts up his car, and drives away. And as he's driving to the church, his radio stereo kind of starts like staticking in and out. And so he thinks, well, that's kind of weird. And then eventually it just blasts this it was something religious. I can't quite remember what it said.
I think it was like Latin words. Like it was saying words in Latin.
Come on.
May God have mercy on your soul!
Like actual
Okay.
Latin. So
Okay, yeah, but like it was like this angelic kind of vibe almost, but also like eerie. And so he freaks out. He turns the radio off and just drives the rest of the way in silence. And he pulls up to the church, gets out, grabs the Annabelle doll. And as he's walking towards the church, you can see the camera pans back to the car. And the person, Annabelle, is like sitting in the back seat. And he gets up to the church doors and opens them and is just thrown backward by this, like, must have been like 20, 30 feet backwards.
also known as air yeeted.
Yes, he was absolutely yeeted.
Oh, he was thrown
And-
out of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw
Demon
the
said,
behind.
nuh-uh.
I saw the behind the scenes. They used a stunt performer for that, and they used strings, and they just yanked him,
Wow.
like yanked him back, and like he landed on a on a pad, but still, you got to think about how much that actually hurt,
That's a lot of force, yeah.
because they just straight up just throw him out of the church, because obviously you can say this next part, but I just also want to kind of give a shout out to the stunt performers, especially in a movie like that,
Yeah.
because stunt performing doesn't really get a whole lot of praise. I think the only time it really got praise is the movie Fall Guys, or it's a movie just about a stunt performer, right? And
Yeah.
so they put their bodies through so much, because they're doing the things that they don't want the actors to do, because if the actor gets hurt, they can't do anything, right? And so they have a stunt guy
Yeah.
doing that stuff. And you just got to think, like a lot of stunt performers, they get paid a lot, but not as much as the actors, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them retire super early, because especially if they start out like super young, like let's say in their like early 20s, right? By the time they're in their 40s, a lot of their joints and things like that are just so destroyed from all the stunts that they do. Like I said, I tip my hat, metaphorically. Robin put an image of someone tipping their hat. Tip my hat to stunt performers. They don't get enough praise. I think there should be an Oscar for stunt performing. I honestly
they're very
do.
underappreciated.
There should be an Oscar for stunt performing. Also doesn't get an Oscar, horror movies.
This is true.
Horror movies don't get Oscars, and that sucks. Because it's just like, look at the amount of work. I think I can probably count on one hand the amount of horror movies that won Oscars. I know for sure one of them is Silence of the Lamb.
Yep.
Best acting performance. The guy who played as Hannibal Lecter, he won an Oscar, and so did Jodie Foster. She also won an Oscar for best acting performance for that movie, right? But it's still like, horror movies just kind of get a bad rep.
Yeah.
Because the horror community itself is a very niche community, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people, it's sad to say, you don't find a lot of horror fans out there. There's more.
Sad but true.
There's more and more people coming out about being horror fans than they were back in the day. but it's also
Mm-hmm.
like the thing is, it's like if you were a fan of horror, especially like in, you know, and where we live, the U.S. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was very shunned upon because of like the huge Christian belief system that's here, right?
Yeah.
It was shunned, and it still is, but not as much as it used to be. But it was shunned because it just like it. They would say, "Oh, if you're a true Christian, you wouldn't be watching this," and blah 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 blah. You're a terrible person for watching horror movies and all kinds of stuff. And it's just like, dude, get off our backs.
Yeah.
We should appreciate movies just like everybody else, you know?
Exactly.
But it's just like, then again, it's just like, because of that stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of horror movies get passed over when it comes to the Oscars because it became just a permanent stigma in Hollywood altogether. That,
Yep.
no one wants to watch a horror movie, no one wants to deal with horror movies, all kinds of stuff, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they kind of just want to stay away from that genre because it is a very risky genre, especially if you want to stay in it. It's a very risky genre to stay in
Yeah.
because it's a hit or miss thing. Because another thing with the horror community, which it kind of makes me upset, is the horror people are very, very, very critical.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They're like a lot more critical than action movies. Like, I would rather sit in a room with people upset about the MCU than sit in a room with someone upset about horror movies.
Yeah.
Because, like, they'll talk about, like, things like the MCU, they're so upset about this, A, B, and C, right? And they kind of have like a
Mm-hmm.
normal ish conversation. They'll fucking
Yeah.
murder you in the horror community if you come out with a bad movie.
Oh, yeah.
They do not play, they do not care. You come up with a bad movie, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think I was talking to Robin about this. I don't know if it was with you, Robin, or was it EP. Anyways, it was just like if a horror movie goes bad, that it turns into a comedy, which doesn't help.
Right.
I mean, are there bad horror movies? Yes. I mean, look at
Yep.
most recently the one about Steamboat Willie.
Yeah.
That one was horrible. Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another one that's getting ready to come out with Howard Thornton as Steamboat Willie. So, fingers crossed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who, if you're just now listening, if you don't know who David Howard Thornton is, he's Art the Clown from Terrifier. He's the Grinch, and the Mean One. He's in a lot of horror movies as like the villain character. There's actually a really cool short movie out there with David Howard Thornton as the Joker on YouTube, and it's the Joker torturing Robin. It's like
Ah.
it's really brutal. Um, anyways,
Yeah.
but back on topic because I've kind of just thrown us through things. So the father gets air yeeted. Continue.
Yes. He gets air yeeted and hits his head, I think, on the pavement. Um, and the doll like falls from his arm, like kind of lands next to him. And we see the person Annabelle like pick up the Annabelle doll and just like walk off. And then obviously he's hospitalized after that. And John is working and he notices the nuns and he goes in and checks on the priest. And this is when the priest explains like, demons will find someone to latch on to and break them down to achieve their goals. And he's kind of explaining like how the Annabelle doll, because he's panicked over where it is, he explains that like the demons will use things as conduits um, to achieve their goal of a being offered a human soul. Um,
And also during this time, um, Mia believes everything has been taken care of. Like she's good, and she's
Hmm.
hanging out with the lady who owns the bookstore because it's like an older lady, um,
Yeah.
and she's like they're watching over Leah at this point. And so, anyways, continue. Sorry, I thought you could give some little bit of context there. Apologize.
Yeah, no. They're like there, and then it kind of cuts back to John and the because it is kind of like bouncing back and forth between Mia and I think the book lady's name is Evelyn or Evie, something like that. Um, it cuts back to the father and John, and this is when the priest warns him that the demon's after Mia's soul because a baby can't offer up their soul. And so John just immediately like figures it out and he books it back home to go check on Mia and Leah. And I think it's that night.
Yeah, it's
It's
that night.
yeah, okay. Um the Evelyn I'm pretty sure it's Evelyn, the book lady. Um she is, you know, with Mia, they're chatting and like shopping for baby clothes. And then there's a knock at the door. And so Mia goes to answer it, and it's the priest, but he's like facing away from the door. And so Mia's like, "Well, Father, hello. Are you okay?" Like, cuz he's kind of acting off. And then it pans to his face, and his face is all like bloody and
Demonic.
scraped up. Yeah, it's demonic basically. And he screams like I don't even know what he yelled, but
I know at the end he just screams and it turns demonic. May God have mercy on your soul. And we're going to add a clip of that in there
May God have mercy on your soul!
because of just how intense that was.
yeah,
Because it
it's
switched over to Malthus' voice right at the end.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's like how Malthus got into their apartment because at first he was using the doll, and then like obviously the father took the doll with, so he had to find another way to get back into their apartment.
And he wasn't using the father itself, like himself. He was just using like a form of the father
Yeah.
waiting for like of the priest to and waiting for them to open the door.
Mhm.
And also John called before this happened. John called them and he was trying to tell Mia like, "Hey, this is what's going on." Mia has no idea because Malthus is messing with the phone on her end. It's like a bunch of static,
Mhm.
so John doesn't even know either. John's telling her about what's going to happen, what they need to do, blah, 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 blah. And she can't hear any of it. It's just a
Yeah.
bunch of static on the end. And that's when the priest shows up. And then all hell breaks loose. No
Yep,
pun
it's
intended.
yeah, it pretty much gets insane from there. Everything happened so fast. I don't think I'm going to say it in the right order.
Well, the first thing is like Malthus is climbing on the ceiling.
Yeah.
He's climbing on the ceiling and he kicks the older lady out of the apartment.
Mhm.
Kicks her out, and then that's when he kind of like disappears, and then the doll pops up again, and just all kinds of
Yeah,
craziness. This
and he
sequence
like
happens so fast. Like you look at it, it's only like a 3 minute long sequence, like three, four,
yeah.
five, maybe 5 minute long sequence. Because the movie's
Mhm.
only
And
an
it's
hour and 30 minutes. Because you got 8 minutes of credit. It's only an hour and 30 minutes long,
yeah.
which is
And at some
insane.
point, yeah. And it's at some point Malthus takes Leah and like hides her in the void, I don't know, as part of a way to make or to break Mia's spirit.
because Mia doesn't know that he can't possess. Yeah, Mia doesn't know that he can't possess Leah.
Right. Yeah, no. Mia still thinks that he's after the baby.
Which is a classic demon tactic if you look into like the biblical history and things like that. When demons are trying to possess people, they would put loved ones and things like that in harm's way. They can't They can't kill them or attack them by any means. They can't do that. But they will put them in harm's way to make it look like as if they're going to do that. And so that's
Right.
what Malthus was doing with Leah, was like making her disappear and just, making things just a lot more difficult for Mia. And then eventually he gets like a crayon and like writes all over the walls, which is like a bad doll. Bad. No, no. You go back.
Yeah.
You go back in the corner, Annabelle. Get off the screen. Go back in the corner. We told you do not. Hey, stop writing on the screen, Annabelle. Stop writing on the screen. Go back in the corner. You sit
Yeah,
there
like
and you
he
think what
wrote
you've
all
done.
over the ceiling. Like just her soul, all over the wall, like all over the ceiling, with like the same mark that was on Mia's arm when Malthus grabbed her down in the basement.
Which turns out is his demonic mark.
Yeah, like his, for lack of a better term, logo.
That's how he franchises.
Yeah, buy his merch.
Turns out Malthus is just your everyday typical 20-something-year-old salesman.
He's got to work on his marketing strategy, but you know what? He's working on it.
Nah, I've heard nowadays he's selling condos, so I mean, he's doing pretty
Yeah,
good for
what a
himself.
guy, he's
Yeah.
moving up in the world.
Yeah. So we'll see if he tries to possess anybody else. Anyways, so done with those dumb jokes. Continue.
Yeah, it's so crazy, and everything is happening. And I think Evelyn somehow gets back in the apartment.
John shows up and gets him back in because John has
Yeah,
a key
okay.
and he gets him back in, and it shows up and it shows like Mia's about to jump out the window.
Yeah, she's got like the Annabelle doll in her arms, and she's like, "This is the only way that this can end. Like, I've got to do this." And John is trying to talk her out of it. He's like, "No, Leah needs you here. I need you here. We can figure a different way out of this."
Yeah.
And she goes to jump out the window, and John like grabs her and pulls her back in, and just kind of repeats like the "We need you here. Leah needs you." And then Evelyn just kind of disappears for a minute, and then she goes, "There is another way out of this." And then we see her standing on the window, holding the Annabelle doll.
Yeah, she sacrifices herself because during like the whole thing, she talks about how she lost her daughter. It was due to a car accident, and she didn't get to see her grow up, and didn't get to she specifically says she didn't get to pray to God to switch places with her
Yeah,
and
she
things
didn't
like
get a chance
that.
to say goodbye.
Yeah, and so she decided to give up her soul for them.
Yeah. So Evelyn jumps out the window with the Annabelle doll, and then almost immediately we can hear Leah's like kind of not laughing, but like just kind of making noise.
If you have
The
the
baby
subtitles
talk.
on, it says Leah cooing.
Yeah, I guess that's where. Yeah, she's just like, "Oh yeah, I was just taken into the void by a demon, but I'm good."
We chilling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We chilling.
We just vibing.
Yeah. Also, you don't see another thing too is Mia just like mollywops the doll. She grabs that doll and she's like banging it on the baby thing. Which also, if you got to think about it, those like the 1970s baby holder things are like made out of metal. I think it was like steel or whatever, and she bent the steel with the face of the Annabelle doll.
Mm-hmm.
She bent the steel with it.
With a porcelain doll.
Yeah. That was that,
Science.
well, I think the doll can't be destroyed because of like the demon working with it. You know,
Yeah.
I think the doll, it can be damaged, but I don't think it can be destroyed because the doll was
Right.
clearly got burned. As you can see, it was soot, but none of the hair was burnt. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there wasn't like the clothes weren't burnt or anything. So like the
Yeah.
doll itself can take damage because as you can see, it has like the crack in its eye and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Roll for damage.
Yeah, but it can't. Yeah, it got a one. Dang it.
You get a minor scratch.
Yeah. Anyways, and so it just has like the doll can't be harmed. And anyways, so after all that fun jazz, and sorry I keep taking over. You can finish out the movie.
I'm good, actually. Why don't you finish it? Been talking for a
What?
minute here.
You've been talking for a minute.
A minute.
Anyway, so the movie ends kind of like um they're at the church and like the priest hands them the picture of Mia with Leah when Leah, like, I think it was like right after Leah's like baptism or whatever. I don't know. They never specified. And like it's all over for them. Like they're done, right? But then it cuts
Mm-hmm.
to it's at a random thrift shop or a collector shop in
Yeah.
some town. It
It's
doesn't
like an
specify.
antique stop.
Yeah,
Or
it
something.
doesn't specify the town, and then it pans over. And actually, if you watch it very closely, they make a reference to the actual Annabelle doll because there's a Raggedy Ann doll in the back corner
Mm-hmm.
that they pass by it. And anyways, and then there's the Annabelle doll itself, the movie one, and it is sitting up on the thing, and the lady's like, "Well, I've never, I haven't seen a lot of those because that specific doll that they used in the movie, apparently back that doll wasn't around a lot because it's like a doll that came out like at the 40s or 50s, right? It's a classic."
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's like a collector's item, and so she takes the doll, like it turns out the mom of the nurse that you met in the beginning takes the doll with her to give to her daughter, and then it cuts away, and then it comes back, and it talks about like Annabelle is now locked up in a glass case and is blessed by a priest once every twice a month and things like that. And they use like the Annabelle doll in the case, but it's like it gives you like the actual facts of the real life Annabelle doll.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's kind of like where the movie ends. It does like a really creepy like close up of the doll, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that a jump scare is going to happen, which I'm going to text this to Robin. I'm also going to say this. I'm going to have him add a random jump scare in this podcast. No one's going to know where it's at. No one's going to say where it's at. He's not going to tell me. He's not going to tell you where it's going to pop up. It's going to pop up, so good luck. Anyways, but it's like it ends and it's coming, it's zooming into the Annabelle doll, and you're thinking like maybe the eyes will move. Nothing. It's just really creepy at the end because you just see the doll sitting
just
inside the
The
case.
suspense factor.
Yeah. And so, anyways, and that's how the movie ends. And so, all right, Grace. So now we can go into more detail. What did you like about Annabelle? What did you didn't like about Annabelle? What would you give it out of stabs?
I liked the story, and how it progresses. I liked the characters. It was just so creepy and suspenseful and eerie, and I think I would like it a lot more if I didn't have like chills down my spine for 99% of it. Um
I mean, it did its
Overall,
job.
oh yeah, no, for sure it did. Overall, I'd give it a solid 3.5
3.5. There you go.
stabs out of 5.
Yeah. For me, it was a great story. It's great storyline. Because like when we talked about like last time me and you discussed, we talked about the poltergeist,
Mm-hmm.
And both of those movies are the same length, but there wasn't a lot of character development. This movie had character development for
Yeah.
all the characters in there. I really liked that. There's not a lot of cons in this movie I can really give because it was just a good movie in
Right. It's
total.
very
I
well
mean,
made.
it's very well made. I mean, it kept you on the edge of your seat the entire time, which it's meant to do that, right?
Right.
And so, um, I think the only con is they should have brought like actual Malthus out more.
Yeah.
I think if they had more scenes with the actual demon, now obviously they did this later on in the other series, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if they would have had Malthus out more, it would have been a lot cooler to see that. But obviously, it's surrounded. All those movies are surrounded by the doll, and so that's what gets people in the seats. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I would give it the same rating, 3.5, because I can't really find a lot of flaws in that movie. Maybe it went a little too fast because all the other ones are like 2 hours long, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's just the first movie they were testing the waters, right? Because they had The
Mm-hmm.
Conjuring, and then they decided to do Annabelle, which is like the most famous ghost story out there, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, in 2014 when this movie came out, it gained more popularity. So,
Right.
anyways, so yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and I do want to say this again: we don't own any rights, claims, nothing over this movie. Go watch it on whatever home media you have. If that's on Netflix, if it's on, DVD, whatever, right? Renting it off Amazon, whatever you have it on. Any legal sites, because we do have to specify that. Any legal sites, watch it. It's a great movie. Obviously, like we talked about it, but we basically jumbled up the movie because we both couldn't just sit there and watch the movie itself
Yeah.
because it scared the crap out of the both of us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, Grace, you have anything to say to these fine people before we sign off?
It's a great movie, and I would definitely recommend watching it. But definitely be prepared for the the fear,
Yeah.
because it will be there.
And if you don't hate dolls then, you'll hate them now.
Yep.
Anyways, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening, watching, all that fun stuff. And as always, be spooky.